Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Okay, so I just ironed all my fabric that I showed you guys before. So now is on to the next step. Okay, so I picked this orange nylon zipper. I really like how the orange sort of makes the planets on this thing pop. So that's why I chose it. So I'm gonna walk you guys through this. You might need to like watch one step and then like pause and do that thing, like watch some more and then like pause and do the next step, because this part is, I think it's like the only part that you probably could mess up basically. So I'm gonna try and make it as like easy to follow as possible. When you're dealing with fabric, so we're gonna take the outer fabric that we bought. Okay, it doesn't matter if it's the front or the back, because essentially they're both the same. So here we go. So we've got on fabric, you have the right side, and it's just called that because it's the side that has the pattern printed on it. And then you have the wrong side of the fabric, which is the back of it. Okay, so you're gonna lay the fabric down right side up. So the side that's got the design that you want to be on the outside of your pouch when you're done, the right side is going to be facing up. Now you're going to take your zipper, and the zipper pull is going to be facing down. So you take your zipper, and the side that's got the zipper pull on it is going to be facing down at the top of your fabric. And my pattern is facing such that the little astronaut guys, their little feet are pointing towards me. So the top of the bag is going to be where the zipper is, right side of the fabric. Okay. Good. Then you're going to take the lining fabric and you're going to take the right side of it. So there's a right side and a wrong side of the lining as well. This is the side that it was printed on. So this is the side that looks nicest. So you're going to take the right side and you're going to put it face down. So it's going to be wrong side up of the lining fabric. And you're going to line up all these things at the top where the zipper is. So I've got these little clippies that I like to use when I'm making zipper pouches. You can use pins, but they're not as easy to use when you're working with zippers and things like that. But you can totally do it. I did it for quite a long time before I invested in these little clippies. You can also use, like, if you have lying around like some little binder clips or whatever, they don't have to be like special clippies that are intended for sewing. Okay, so now you've got all these things lined up. You've got your zipper lined up at the top. You've got your fabric should be right sides together. So the right side of your outer fabric and the right side of your inner fabric are facing each other. And you're just gonna take your little clippies or your pins or whatever, and you are going to clip these all together. Okay, so, I mean, the bag is probably, let's see, the bag is about 10 inches long, and I did 6 clippies. So that'll give you an idea of how many clippies per inch you could do. That just helps me make sure that things aren't gonna move in a way that I don't want them to while I'm sewing. Okay, so here we go. So we're gonna sew along this line now, and I'm going to show you how to do that. Now, lots of people are intimidated by sewing zippers, and so, but the thing is that I started sewing and quickly started sewing zipper pouches, and it doesn't have to be that intimidating once you learn how to do it. And especially if you're starting with a nylon zipper, you aren't like at risk of you know, ruining your machine with a metal zipper, so you should be totally fine. All right, so I've currently got just the regular foot on my sewing machine that's used for sewing most things. But what I want to use for this is the zipper foot. So right at the back, there's a little lever. I'm going to pop this foot off. Now I've got my zipper foot, and you can put it on either side so it latches on. There's a little bar in the middle. It latches on either to the right side or the left side. I have a preference. So I'm going to latch it on so that the left side of my sewing machine is where I'm gonna put the teeth of the zipper when I'm sewing. And I'll show you guys, hopefully this will make sense in just a second. Okay, so taking my fabric with my zipper sandwiched in between, I've got the zipper facing up. And I'm just gonna take this and I'm gonna snuggle it up. I'm gonna snuggle the zipper foot up against the zipper. Okay, so it's snuggled up right next to the feet there. Okay, so I'm gonna start off with back stitching. So that's where you sew backwards for a couple of stitches in order to make sure that once you're done sewing, your stitches aren't going to come out. So you have to do what's called back stitching at the front and the back of your line of stitches, just to make sure that they stay put. So in order to sew backwards, I'm going to hold down this little lever here, and here we go. Now I'm going to let this lever up in order to sew forwards again. So I'm not sewing on top of the zipper teeth, I'm sewing right next to them. And I like to just sort of move my finger along the zipper teeth to make sure that as I'm sort of guiding the fabric through, that the zipper teeth will remain close to the needle, but not under it. This is harder to do one-handed than I thought it would be. And go as slow as you need to go. Okay, so now I'm at the end. So I'm gonna pull down this lever again and I'm gonna back stitch. Okay, so now I'm gonna pull up this lever in order to release my little foot there. And I've ensured that my sewing needle is up so it's not still caught down in my project. All right, okay, so then you can open it up. And as you can see, I've now got, so my zipper pull is on this side, which is perfect because it should be on the top of my outer fabric. That's how we know we did it in the correct direction. And the lining fabric now has the outside showing. So this is now called wrong sides together. So the wrong side of my outside fabric and the wrong side of my inside fabric are touching each other. So that's how you know that you have sewn everything in the correct direction. Okay, so here's the next part. We're basically going to do the exact same thing, but on the other side. So I'm going to take my outer fabric, right side up, take my zipper, and then put it with the teeth side down, which means that my outside fabric is going to be right sides together. So if you see RST on a sewing pattern, that's what that means, right sides together. And then I'm going to take my lining fabric and put that right sides together with my other lining fabric. And then we're going to do the exact same thing. So we're going to clip these together. And you want to have it more or less lined up with the other pieces of lining and outer fabric. So if you started like way to the left side of your zipper or whatever, then you just want to make sure that your lining and outer fabric are again lined up that same way. So here we go. All right, I'm gonna do this one without the close-up. If you guys want to see more like angles or whatever of me sewing zippers in order to really be confident about it, then let me know in the comments. I can do a little video compilation just of various angles of sewing the zipper in order to give you guys a little more of a tutorial on that. And again, feel free to go as fast or as slow as you want to in order to make yourself comfortable with it. All right, so there's that step. So now I'm going to open this up. And as you can see, both of my outer fabrics are going the correct direction. When they're all finally sewn together, both of them will be with the top of the fabric facing up towards the teeth of the zipper, so it's perfect. Okay, great. Now this next step that I'm going to show you is technically optional, but I like to do it because I think it looks way more professional. So I'm going to take my zipper foot off now because we are all done sewing the zipper on. I'm going to put my regular foot back on. Here we go. Normal foot. Okay, so top stitching, I'm going to take my lining and my top fabric as if they are one piece, and I'm going to hold them taut out from the zipper. And with my normal foot on, I'm just going to line up my foot so that it's right next to those zipper teeth, and so that my row of stitching will be like, I don't know, maybe 1/4 of an inch away from the zipper, but on top of the fabric. And this is just gonna give it a nice finished look in the end. So I'm not gonna backstitch this one because this stitch is just decorative. It's not constructional specifically, so I'm not going to worry about backstitching. Okay, and then I'm just going to turn it around and do the other side. Okay, so this is top stitching. So you can see the row of stitches that I did on either side of the zipper. It just takes a second and it really makes the product look way more finished. So I really like to do that. The first thing that you're gonna do is you're gonna undo the zipper till about the middle of your project somewhere in the middle. Basically, when you sew this, if the zipper is closed, you're not going to be able to open your project back up and it's going to be ruined. So you just have to make sure that the zipper is open and like within the boundaries of your fabric here. So now I'm going to take the loose ends of my zipper and I'm going to put them together and I'm going to fold them down towards the lining. So, and then I'm going to clip them together outside of the fabric. So if you turn your zipper towards the lining of your fabric, then in the end, you're going to have a more square project. But if you turn your zipper towards the outer fabric, then you're going to end up with sort of rounded edges of your zipper pouch in the end. So it really just depends on your aesthetic. There's not like a wrong way to do it, but that is something to know. So especially if you're doing like a set and you want them all to look the same, you're going to want to do them all either towards the lining or all towards the outer fabric. Okay, so I've got my zipper on both sides pinned with the teeth pointing towards the lining fabric. I've separated it out so that the lining fabric is on one side and then the outer fabric is on the other side, and both are right sides together. So I'm going to start at the lining side and I'm going to try and match them up as well as I can. They weren't completely even when we started, and so you don't really have to worry about getting them like super exact, but you want to make them as precise as you can. So what I always do is I take 2 of my Clippies, or you can do pins. I've definitely done zipper pouches with pins before, and I put 2 right here because you're going to need to leave a hole for opening it up. I've seen people with their pins put like an X right there so they know like don't sew over this section because I need to leave that section open for turning the item, because as you can see, it's essentially inside out right now. So I'm gonna clip it all the way around just to sort of hold it together while I'm sewing. And again, you don't have to be too exact about this. You can always take a second and even things out if you need to. Okay, so in the lining fabric, you've got those 2 pins or some crisscrossed pins or Clippies to remind you, do not sew over this when you get back over to it. So just remember that. You've got your zipper is unzipped into the middle of your project, so you're not going to sew over the zipper and end up with a completely unusable project. Okay, so I'm going to take the side with the lining. I'm going to put it in my machine, starting just on the other side of these 2 Clippies. I'm going to back stitch. I'm going to stitch forward. So when I get to a corner, I just stop sewing with the sewing needle down. I lift up my little foot lever thingy, and I spin the project so that now I can do just a straight line from here. Now I'm about to sew over the zipper. There's really no special instructions to this. If your machine stops running or gets stuck, you can use your little crank knob over here on your machine, and you can just sort of manually get yourself out of the spot that you were in. Sometimes the needle will hit like on a single tooth of the nylon zipper and it'll stop running for a second, but I haven't like broken any needles, and I haven't broken my machine. So sometimes it just needs to, then you have to manually get it over that little spot. Another thing that I do specifically is I want my zippers to last for a very long time. So I sew over the zipper, and then I backstitch back over the zipper, and then I sew over the zipper again. So I just do a couple rows of stitching over the zipper in order to make sure that it's really in there really well. And it really doesn't take almost any time at all to do that extra little step of backstitching. And I think that it just makes a really sturdy final project. And I just leave about, I don't know, a half an inch, maybe a quarter of an inch. I just, you know, I look at how much fabric is on the other side of the presser foot, and I just sort of try and keep it at that amount. It's definitely not an exact science. So here again, I'm sewing over that zipper. I'm gonna do some back stitching and then come back over it again. All right, and then I'm gonna sew this line, but we're back almost to where I've got these two clippies to remind me not to close it all the way. So here we go. So I'm gonna sew almost to the clippies, and then I'm just gonna do a quick back stitch. And then I'm gonna take my project out of the machine and snip my threads off. And then you can take off these two clippies. Okay, so the next step is to cut off the extra. So I'm gonna take these little corners and I'm gonna clip those off. The only thing to remember is that we're gonna have to sew this close after we turn it. So I usually don't cut very much off of this hole that we've left for turning, just because I don't want to be left with no fabric to grab onto in order to sew it up. So all around the edges, I'm just going to clean them up. If you're just making a baggie for yourself and you aren't concerned about a little bulk around the edges, you don't have to cut off the fabric, but you are going to want to cut off the excess parts of the zipper. And it's super easy. You just cut them off with your scissors. If you have scissors that are like really special to you, then probably don't use those on the zippers, because they will eventually dull your scissors. So you could have a special set of zipper scissors. Okay, so I've basically gone all around my pouch and I've cut off all the excess. So you can see now there's just the stitches and enough fabric left around the stitches so that it will hold. Okay, so now I'm going to take this hole that we left in the lining fabric, open it up, stick my hand in, grab the bottom part of the outer fabric, and I'm gonna pull everything through. And then I'm gonna stick my hand back down in. And first with the outer fabric, I'm just gonna take my hand and sort of push out the corners and just make sure that it's got the shape that I want it to. Some people use pens or scissors to really get those corners pointy, and I have broken some stitches doing that, so I try to just use my hand. And then shove the lining down in there, and voila, you can see we have made a zipper pouch. And so we are almost done, but you can see what the finished project is going to look like. It's bending down a little bit here, so I would probably go back over it in the end and like give it a quick little iron, but you don't want to iron the zipper because it will melt. But I might just iron the stitches where I top stitched it, because I think that's what's causing it to turn under. Okay, so for finishing out the pouch, you're going to take the lining out. Now, oftentimes people will finish their projects by hand. I will tell you that I prefer to finish it on the machine, but there you go. So I took that hole that we had and I just folded down the fabric into the hole and clipped it. So it looks like the sides, it matches up with the two sides where we had sewn it, and then the hole is right here. And so I just clipped that shut. Now I'm gonna sew a line of stitches all along the bottom, and that's just going to close up that hole, and it's gonna make the bottom look uniform. If I was doing this for an order, I would either use gray or white thread in order to make it like matchy-matchy. But I have black thread in my machine, so that's what I'm gonna use because this is for my kiddo. Okay, so the bottom of the bag now has a line of stitching all along it. And so now we're just gonna fold the lining back into the bag. And voila, that is how you make a lined zipper bag. You can do them any size, and with nylon zippers, you can do, you can buy zippers that are much longer than any project you would ever need, and then you can cut them down to size. I would love to see your guys' finished projects. If you're on Instagram, you can tag me in your post. It's at craftyasfolks on Instagram, or come join us in our Facebook group and share a picture of your project in the Facebook group. We would love to see it, which is Crafty as Folk VIP. And anyway, I look forward to seeing your guys' projects. Thanks so much for following along with me. And if you like this video and feel like you're getting value out of my channel, please subscribe and give this video a thumbs up.